So my problem is the parking brake. No matter how much I adjust it at the shoes, I keep having to use it absolutely at the maximum before it engages. And based on what I've been seeing online, there's an issue with the drum. So my plan is to take this apart and see if I can MacGyver something as I've seen done by other people. So the first thing to do to get this console off is, of course, to take off the shift knob. So I've already got it in neutral. I've got a wheel chock, so at least I don't have to worry about the vehicle moving on me in the garage. And what I've seen online, and we'll see if it's as straightforward as people say, is you pretty much want to reach onto it from the back, and with both hands you want to pull up. So apparently this is just put in with pressure. What people say is when it lets go, it does let go, and it tends to want to fly up. So just be really cautious of that. Holy smokes, that was easy. So it's off. I don't know if it's ever been removed. I've never removed it, but it's off. So now this part here is held into place with clips. So it should be able to tug it up. Let's see if I can figure out how to do it. So as I pull it around everywhere, it kind of broke free. So by the looks of it, I'm gonna have to wiggle my weight. There we go. It's off. So now I got to get a tool out. There's some bolts on the two sides, front and on the back. Now that the 4 T30 bolts are out, time to get the whole console off. A lot of people say that the parking brake has to be fully up to be able to get this out. So it'll be interesting to see how to get it back in once all this is torn apart and fixed. The harness there, that's going somewhere. It is. So it turns out that under the console, there's a cable that comes to the passenger side under the seat, and here's the clip that has to be disconnected to be able to remove the console. So depending on what you have under your seat, it may be super easy to access or maybe a pain in the butt like mine. But the important thing is you see that little red clip? That has to be pushed upwards before you can release the connector. And now I'm going to put the phone down, unconnect it, pull it back, and the console should come up. Of course, they were nice to tie in 2 connectors on the same cable bundle, so there's another one just a little bit closer to the door jamb. That one also has to be disconnected and removed to be able to pull out that whole harness. Again, same idea with that red clip. This one, just by looking at it, looks like we're going to have to push it downwards. So hopefully we're done with the surprises. Now we'll try lifting up the console. Hopefully the cable is going to pull out from underneath the seat. Fishing it back in after is going to be a little bit more fun, but we'll deal with that later. All right, this is definitely some progress compared to before. Of course, the goal is to lift it up completely. Doesn't really want to go any further than that. Trying my darndest not to break the console. All right, let's change the approach. So I pulled out the wires from underneath the seat. Hopefully that's what was just catching somewhere. So let's see what happens now. Same idea. It almost feels like I gotta get this up even more. Look at that. Of course, I've added a USB in the back of this console, so it's going to be a little bit of a challenge. Let's see if I can do this without having to disconnect it. So here you guys can see the system. We have the 2 cables that go to the back. They come to one, comes to the parking brake assembly, and there's 2 sets of springs, one that adds tension through a almost like a brake shoe, and transfers it to the other one. And together, they work to put tension on this cable. So what happens is when the system is new, it'll actually do a good job of holding roughly 20 pounds of pressure on this line. And then what happens is it doesn't take long after you've engaged your parking brake, it'll actually do something. So what happens over time, and you're off-road, you're hitting bumps, this slowly moves back, and then you get to a point where you need to use a parking brake, and you're going all the way up. You're hitting the bump stop here for the arm, and you're still not getting good tension out of this cable. So what some people have figured out is that by moving this, having something that prevents this from unwinding itself, or if you're really up to it, you could take this apart and make this clock spring, make it give it an extra turn to give it a little bit more tension, but that'll help hold your parking brake tension so that when you start using it, you actually get your full pull, and it actually holds your vehicle in place. So here's my little contraption based on what I've seen on the line. I'll take some photos of it after. The nice thing is this is adjustable, so depending on the amount of slack you have in your cable, you can adjust the preload. The cable's nice and taut. If you want a little bit more, pull out a screwdriver, tighten it in a little bit. And now, even before it gets all the way to the top, it's really tight, really tight. So I'll probably give it a little bit more, like that. And now when my handbrake goes up, I can feel like there's actual leverage in there, not just something moving. This definitely feels like it's going to actually hold the vehicle. All right, so this is what it ends up looking like. It's not very long. So the more or less straight section is about 3 inches long. The bent section at the bottom is about 1.5, but it could be 1.25, would still work nicely. I'll have to check the angles, but that's somewhere around the 60 degree, 70 degree mark. The top, it's just to say, and again, excuse the welds. This is actually my first welding job, so the fact that it's still holding up, I'm pretty happy. I had some 1/8 stock, 1 inch wide. That's what I used. Could definitely use a slightly thinner gauge. This bolt's roughly 1.5 inches long. Yeah. And there's a third nut on it, so it can actually be locked into place once I'm happy with the actual adjustment. So now I'm going to give a quick cleaning of the welds. Give it a little bit of paint just to give it a bit of chance of not rotting out too quickly. And then I'll put it into the vehicle for good. So here's my completed bracket. Gave it a coat of paint to try to keep it looking clean for a while. I've got a lock nut here so that it won't work its way loose. I fiddled with it. The vehicle seems like the parking brake releases nicely when it's all the way down. And it definitely catches, like I'm really feeling it tug as I'm pulling it up. So at least now I know that my parking brake is actually going to hold, and I'll be able to try it out tomorrow. Console back in, same idea as taking it out. Unfortunately, this thingy got caught, so the pin at the bottom is unhooked. And I noticed it was a bit of an issue at one point putting it in, and it's kind of a hot glue into place type of thing. And now this side is also popping out. So I'll leave it as is for now. I'll figure out what I'm going to do later. But just be very careful as you're putting it back in. This parking brake has to be pretty much pulled all the way back to be perfectly vertical. So there's a hope of putting this console back in without catching it. So hopefully someone has a trick, but